Our program continue on in March this year, 2024. We will divulge soon the topics for next year. My name is Zueni Canuco, Vania Canuco. I work in Pajo and the Secretariat of RedETSA. In our webinar today, we'll be having simultaneous interpretation in 2 channels, plus the original. We'll have both English and Spanish. The recording there will be a recording of the session. This will be available on the RedETSA webpage as well as in Pajo TV.
You're gonna have an interpretation available in 2 channels, in English or Spanish, and Spanish. Me gostaria de hacer un agradecimiento a
Express our gratitude to all those of you with us here today, particularly the members of INAHTA, and as well as Tara, who's with us here today, who will be making a presentation, and the Senior Research Fellow in Research Policy is Secretariat of INAHTA, Dr. Juan Antonio Vasco Amaro, coordinator of the Andalusian Agency in Spain, director of INAHTA's board, and co-chair of Databases Steering Committee, as well as Ivan Schmidt, who works in Wickwick in Germany, and who's a co-chairperson of INAHTA as well. For Pajo, we have our colleagues who will be participating and be making the first presentation that will be made by Malene Holman, who coordinates our Secretariat of RedETSA, and Caroline Beckman, who works with us in TTS, Department of Evaluation, Sanitary Technologies, Medications, and the Pan American Health Organization. Therefore, it is indeed very important. This topic is tremendously important to us. Dissemination of the databases, which is a very useful tool for countries that wish to develop
que pueden utilizar
in this area, and who can use these databases even for scientific evidence and clinical evidence, which happen to be basically the same in all countries, and also dealing with economic issues by using the existing models. We carry out the coordination of this webinar since the beginning of the year, and now we can, of course, discuss this issue. But before moving on to Malene, I will be making a very brief presentation on the RedETSA, so that you know what kind of work carrying out here in Pajo. And then Malene will be making a presentation, and then we'll move on to the other presentations as part of this webinar. I will be sharing with you my screen now. I don't know if you can get to see it clearly. And I will be telling you about what is it that we're actually doing in RedETSA, the Network for Technology and Health in the Americas. RedETSA is a regional network made up by institutions, BTS, in order to develop this area in Latin America. Basically, its objective is to strengthen and promote the process of BTS in the Americas, allowing for the exchange of information. Basically speaking, this exchange of databases is indeed very important, as you will be realizing today. In its makeup, it has several organizations in the region, and we started back in 2011 with 12 countries. Now we already have 21 countries of the region in our network. And as of now, we have had 13 presence regional meetings and one. This is the makeup of our networks in the Americas. We have countries of the entire continent. The last one to join in RedETSA was Jamaica. We had a meeting this year in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. And RedETSA we also have working groups, one that has to do with ETAs and medical devices, which is indeed very important, as you realize, in the evaluation of technologies or this type of technologies. Next, there's another working group that has to do with adaptation of reports, report adaptation of ETS, which is very important for our region because we still do not have the whole development of the areas of competence and the capabilities in order to carry out ETS. So it takes up the reports, which are very important. And for our databases, this is very important for this type of development. This is a group which is carrying out a proposal for the adaptation of the reports to the region. We also have an equity team in ETS, a very important topic we're dealing with, and also a real-world evidence group, finally. So, RedETSA has been working in the area of training in the virtual field of PAHO. We have more than 300 well-trained professionals. We have scholarships in ETS with economic support, which are carried out with members of our network, with the RedETSA, EX, and other institutions existing in our region. We also conducted technical visits to the countries in order to learn about the work in Brazil, in Canada, in Colombia, where there have been very important changes. Other activities that we conduct, as I was saying, and we're coming to the end of the year, are indeed our webinars like this one, where we have had up to 650 participants in one of these webinars this year. This is for topics decided upon by members of the network. This year, we were focusing basically on the experience of a hospital ETS, a very important topic for our region. We're developing a study now, the National Institute of Cardiology in Brazil, in order to have a model for the region. We have also been working this year with cost effectiveness and now with databases as well. Another very important activity as part of RedETSA, and which was very substantial in order for us to be able to develop the new activities of our network, was the mapping, the charting. We conducted a survey between 2019 and 2022 with countries in the region. We have the profiles of the countries of 11 countries have been published in our RedETSA website. Very important in order to plan the new training activities. What are the needs we have, where we have to improve in the region, of course? So there, in our site, you can have a better view of the actual situation prevailing among the countries in the region. So by way of this survey, we also managed to realize that there is much more. From 12, we moved on to 19 countries that have a unit, an organization of the RedETSA. And this year we made much progress in our region as well. The number of countries that have some kind of ETS in the country, which have been using it after 2015 until 2022. On our database, Melen will telling us about it. This is started back in 2017, and toward the end of this year, we'll have almost 3,000 ETS reports made available by members in the region. There are many landmarks which are very important. Here we have some of those. I will not discuss each and one. In 2011, by the way, was very important for our region. In Brazil, we had an HTA in Rio, the first one in Latin America. There was the establishment of RedETSA during that meeting, the establishing of CONITEC, and thereon many steps, as well as the PAHO resolution in 2012 and the resolution of WHO in 2014, as well as strengthen the need of using ETS in our discussions. Many other steps throughout these years are carried out toward the development of this network and region. We still have tremendous challenges before us and much work to be done. In the survey, members of the network stated the various challenges and the awareness about the importance of ETS, its institutionalization, the qualified human resources, the mandate for the public authorities that work with ETS, and political support. These were all challenges that members described as part of this survey, and the necessary steps we must take continue affirming the links of ETS in decision-making, consolidate institutional frameworks to support these less developed countries and these themes, to continue improving install capacity, as well as improving the quality of the standardization of the ETS reports with our database, as well as our methodological support, and to increase availability of data and local reports, which is precisely what we're discussing today as part of our webinar. This here is the meeting that we had in Jamaica back in November. We had a very broad participation by the countries, almost 200 people from the region who attended, and we got all together in order to discuss plans for the for next year. Thank you so very much indeed, and this is the end of my presentation for now. Now we move on to Malen, who will be making her presentation. Go ahead, Malen. Thank you very much for the work in organizing this seminar, this webinar. You're basic in the development of our work. Thank you very much to you. I will be sharing my screen with you right away.
Viendo mi presentación.
Can you now see my presentation? Yes, we can see it very well. Excellent. My name is Malin Holman, as Manny told us, part of the RedETSA Secretariat. We're in the Department of Innovation, Access to Medications and Sanitary Technologies of PAHO. And in a few minutes, we will try to inform you about the regional base for technology evaluation in the Americas, BRISA, which is a RedETSA and PAHO initiative. The database was launched at the end of 2017 during the yearly meeting of RedETSA that was held in Panama. BRISA is the first open virtual library in the Americas throughout the region that brings in reports and evaluation of sanitary technologies. In the BRISA database, we have different types of evaluation of sanitary technology, many rapid evaluations, many HTA, and systematic reviews, as well as economic reviews and budgetary impact analysis. The documents, most of this except a few, are all produced by member institutions of RedETSA. The database was developed in collaboration with BIREME. BIREME is the Latin American Center and the Caribbean for Information in Health Sciences, which was the developer, created the virtual library in ETS. And BRISA is precisely lodged in the service of BBS, together with LILACs, OBICs, and others that have these clinical guidelines. In BRISA, we may find documents in Spanish, Portuguese, French, and English. More than half of those are already in Spanish, 1/3 in Portuguese, and the rest are in English and French. Last year, we had what we call BRISA 2.0, which is a new version, which deals with the thematic conflict, possibility of advanced motor, search motor, especially which is good for people who are familiar with this type of research devices.
Now I'm just going to give you a sample through this video that I think will describe the operations of how BRISA works. Medicines, medical devices, and other health technologies enable improving the health of communities and are indispensable in our lives. But of all of the available options, What do we know that are the best options that can provide us the best healthcare systems that can become more effective in the use of resources? To answer this question, countries are using increasingly health technologies. This is a multidisciplinary approach that analyzes and compares the various technology costs and those available, as well as priorities, preferences, and legal, social, and ethical issues to provide information so that the authorities can make well-informed choices. That's why the Pan American Health Organization and RedETSA, which is the Health Technology Assessment Network, provided BRISA, which is the regional database of health information. This is the first open virtual library that will centralize health information that otherwise would be dispersed or not accessible. This will make it all available for decision makers, healthcare authorities, as well as citizens in general to make decisions. BRISA also takes advantage of experiences in other countries, promotes the incorporation of medicines and other cost-effective health technologies. It contributes to the appropriate use, as well as envisions the utilization of inputs that contribute to the well-being of our communities with an increasing collection of information in Portuguese, English, French, and Spanish. BRISA provides a whole array of health information and technology data with specific queries that can be answered very easily, including other networks like RELAC. So discover BRISA, which is a collaborative tool that allows us to identify equitable, sustainable, and high technology responses. Just go to PAHO for more information. I hope you enjoyed that brief presentation. Now let me continue. BRISA has been an initiative of RedETSA that has gradually developed and grown as a part of the array of health technologies. This year, we had more than 340 reports issued and downloaded. We have a total number of 2,940 health technology measurement information. Almost 3,000 reports as of this date. Of the 21 member states of RedETSA, 11 of them are involved in BRISA. There are 31 participating institutions that have input health evaluation reports. We have with us our colleague that can provide more information. If you want more information, just write in the chat box, and Caroline, I invite you to be a part of this process. Go ahead. Now, in addition to the large amount of reports issued, one thing that has also been surprising is the number of hits or queries in this website. In 2018, we had, since it was launched, we only had 5,000 hits that were visited. But over time, we've gradually increased the number of hits. During the pandemic, we saw an exponential increase in the number of people that were consulting the website. We've seen a significant increase, not just of hits, but also users that were going in sporadically, some that didn't return or were not frequent visitors. But we see that perhaps these people are not making decisions, they're not involved in health. They may be from the community at large. They might be citizens, people that just wanted to learn a little bit more, because there's been so much discussion about this technology, and especially since the start of the pandemic. Over time, however, we saw that after 2020, and then we saw a drop in 2021. Then we saw a drop again 2022, and yet we've had more than 110 visits or hits in 2023, which is still a significant amount. So what's the positive message from this is that through Brisa, we had a more clear information as to how an ETS is developed, a technology evaluation, so that people can make better informed decisions. So that was a positive outcome. Brisa, of course, the recurrent users are those of us involved in developing new health technologies and interested in coverage levels. But it's good that we have this open source for citizens, for students, and also people involved directly in research. And now looking at the country of origins of the users that have served themselves of this technology, we see, well, regarding countries of origin of users, Brazil is far and away number one with regards to health technologies, followed by Mexico, Peru, Argentina, fit in fifth place. We have Spain, which is a country outside of our region, followed by Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, Venezuela, the US. Venezuela, for example, is not part of the RedETSA network, but it is, again, an open library, and it provides an opportunity to share the content with anyone interested. It's a highly useful tool, evidently, for those outside of the network as well. Now, looking at the country of origin for reports from contributed to Brisa, we have Brazil, Peru, Argentina, Colombia, Canada, Chile, and Uruguay, which I think matches the number. It matches the countries with regards to the origin of hits and consultations. What are the next steps? Well, we're making continuous and collaborative efforts with the members in order to keep information up to date and support the continuous growth of Brisa. Also, we're trying to bring in new contributing and collaborating partners to Brisa. With regards to the RedETSA members, there are some that are now developing their first reports, and they're very eager to share the content. Similarly, with RedETSA, for some time now, they've been developing new health technology information, but sometimes for reasons of confidentiality with the ministries, they weren't able to share their reports. We're now working, however, with the ministries in order to ensure greater transparency in health technology assessments. This is a joint undertaking, and looking at external cooperating agencies, we have, for example, Spain. Spain has their the Spanish Development Organization. We have other initiatives where we're trying to include reports with Brisa, working with external parties. And now we already have various joint plans in order to get them to these external partners to share their reports and content. One thing that people overlook, but we also maintain continuous maintenance and upgrading efforts with the databases in order to increase and keep up to date data. And also we're maintaining our servers up to date. We're also relaunching Brisa. Now we're going to divide it by categories based on medical and also technology categories, so that we can carefully review the health technology assessment reports and sort them into these different categories. That's all I had, so thank you very much. Here's my email. After the next presentation, we're going to review the database to make this even more user-friendly. So thank you very much, and I offer the floor back to Juan Antonio Blasco. And I also want to thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this webinar with Juan Ignacio.
Un segundo.
Perfecto, ya tenemos la presentación.
We've got our presentation ready. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are located. For us in INAHTA, it is a pleasure to join this webinar, and we're going to introduce overall what INAHTA is all about, its operations, and then we'll provide you with some specific data. As was already mentioned earlier, we will then finally, after Tara, Siv Waffen-Schmidt is going to talk about how to use the International HTA database. So the INAHTA network is an international network of health technology assessment functions and efforts. We've just celebrated our 30th anniversary, and we have a total number of 55 member agencies from 34 countries. Our members, basically, actually the majority of our members are from Western Europe, but we also have members from the Americas, Latin America, Canada, the United States, Asia, and then there are other regions that also have various agencies involved. For example, Australia and New Zealand. We have 3 agencies. Then we have fewer participants from Africa, but we have a fairly large number of agencies in total, 55, in the area of health technology assessments. The INAHTA members have in common the fact that they're all involved in assessing technology in healthcare. These assessments support the decision-making at the regional level, as well as globally. Decisions made by governments as well as health agencies to in order to be eligible for membership. They have to be working, the members have to be working for governments, either regional or national governments. They are nonprofit organizations, public organizations, in other words, and must have at least 50% of their funding coming from public sources. So in this picture, I think this is a meeting, the meeting held in Cologne, Germany, where you see basically the directors of all of the agencies. So now let's discuss INAHTA's mission. There are several key pillars. We focus on bringing leadership and expertise to try to advance the science, also practice and impact of health technology assessments. We also focus on enabling the exchange of technology and learning among the member agencies. And we also focus on, in many of the activities and the reports that we prepare, are focused on being consistent with best practices. We also present the public HTA agency viewpoints, in particular on matters of strategic, scientific, and policy, health policy perspective for each one of the members in their respective work areas. Of course, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with these partners, including, well, with RedETSA, the Network of the Americas. We have signed MOUs with the Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, as well as HTA, which is the Health Technology Assessment International Organization. We also have we've signed an MOU with the Asia Regional HTA Network, and we've also looked at and we've signed agreements covering the International Guidelines Network, GIN, in addition to the development of rapid responses in the context of emerging and new technologies in healthcare. That is basically the area that we're focusing on with Euroscan. We've also signed an MOU with the European Network for HTA. Now, within the European Commission, this is now transitioned into regulations. It's going to be implemented in 2025. Now we're in the preparatory phase with this handover transition. We're organizing 4 groups, one that is devoted to clinical assessments, another to scientific consultations, the third in identifying new and emerging technologies, and the final working group is focused on developing methodologies that we're going to expand all of this as we prepare joint reports in Europe. And again, this will begin in 2025. In a parallel effort, we provide support and assistance to the EU Commission that encompasses heads of HTA agencies. I'm a part of that initiative that this group review the development and implementations of the European regulations. We have various activities. One focused on members. We have, for example, an annual INAHTA event or Congress, working with members of the scientific community. In fact, next year, I just want to mention that it's going to be held in Seville, where I'm located. And we also listserv, which is for members that can this is a forum or platform to ask policy questions as well as methodologies that could be an important resource. The fact is that we're able to carry out a significant amount of internal cooperation among the members. We also have learning groups, specific learning groups, that focus on key topics, including patient engagement, real-world evidence, and qualitative evidence and environmental sustainability. This resource also helps members to get updated as to how they're addressing many of these common challenges, common to all of the agencies, both regionally, such as in Europe, and globally. And for the community, we also develop these following activities. For example, we have been involved in the creation of a new HTA definition. We've developed a glossary, in fact, with terminology that is HTA driven and focused. Obviously, we participate in other joint activities besides this one with our MOU partners.
So visually, you can see here the directors of the board of directors of INAHTA. Our co-chairperson, Albert Gruder from Germany, Luciana Bellini, vice chair from Italy, Jenny Berg from Sweden, Susan McGrath from Canada, Irena Gusina from France, and Rosa Maria Vivanco and I myself from Spain. What are the resources that we have now? And according to today's topic, we have the database, which has records of over 20,000 reports. We have a glossary that has been set in motion in various languages: English, French, Spanish, German, Portuguese, and even in Russian. And then we're preparing a whole series of position statements on how to incorporate patients or the perspective of patients in our reports regarding new and emerging technologies, and also regarding other aspects that we deem are also relevant. Now we're also working on a future statement that will be published on real-world evidence. We too have been working on resources having to do with the actual impact of the HTA reports. We have an award that has been developed in order to deal with this topic that we share at each and every Congress with the other members, so that they may express their impact stories. And we have as a motivation, we select one of them to receive the award. Which are the types of products that we include? Obviously, we have the complete reports, the HTA reports, but also we include rapid reviews as well as mini HTAs, which are drawn up at the level of the health centers or small agencies. We also have a checklist that allows us to ensure the quality of the reports, of the sanitary technology reports in various languages: English, French, and Italian, Spanish and Italian. Lastly, just to let you know that in the web, as you know, it is INAHTA at ihe.ca. And if you want to become members of INAHTA, you can check the information right there with the master manager, who is Tara Schuller, who will next give us a general overview of the database. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Juan Antonio, and I think it's my turn now, so I will just continue on with my slides. I'll switch to English for a refreshment for maybe those of us that aren't Spanish speaking. So here we go, get to my slide. So my part of the presentation is to talk about the HTA database, the International HTA database, and provide an overview. So I will continue here. So until 2018, the database was produced by the Center for Reviews and Dissemination in the UK. Some of you who have been in HTA for a while might remember this database. There's a picture of it here on the slide with the green font, the green colors. And there's a long history between the CRD and INAHTA. In fact, the origins of the CRD database come from the INAHTA briefs, actually. So there's a very long history and connection between the CRD and INAHTA. And so it wasn't a surprise when in 2019, INAHTA was asked by the CRD to continue with the production of the database. There were some changes in the UK and in their funding structures. Interestingly, it was around the time when Brexit happened, so maybe they were kind of turning inwards, pulling back from some international activities. That's just speculation, I'm not sure, but nonetheless, they turned to INAHTA when they ran into some funding difficulties with the production, and INAHTA was able to take over the production, and we rebuilt the database from scratch, and we have the new platform now, which you can see there on the right. So the International HTA database is a bit different than the BRISA database in that the International HTA database is a bibliographic database. So there's links to the reports on the agency websites. We don't have the PDFs loaded right in the database, but as you can see in the example on the right, which is from our colleagues in Sweden, I believe, you can take the link directly to the project or go right into their website to get the report. for the governance and operation of the database, the INAHTA Board of Directors has decision authority over the platform and any changes or any issues, that type of thing. And the Database Steering Committee, and we have our two co-chairs here with us, Juan Antonio and Steve today. So they're leading the Database Steering Committee, and they're responsible for the database functioning and any changes in search features or things like that, and just helping with the more day-to-day decisions and functioning of the database. So a few statistics. So as it was said in an earlier slide, there's over 20,000 records in the HTA database that date back to 1998. So there's a long history. Some of the older reports, of course, are outdated, but they're helpful to have on the database because it provides some history and some context for the evolution of some of the topics. So there are some older reports that go quite far back. And you can see that we have a broad range of contributors as well. There's 123 HTA bodies that currently contribute to the database. There's 48 of those that are INAHTA members. There's about 25,000 visitors each year using the database. Some of the top countries that are the users of the database are from the US, UK, Canada, India, Australia, Germany, Spain, China, Italy, and Belgium. But there's also some low and middle income country users, for example, from Nigeria, Romania, Ecuador, and Ethiopia. And this is my final slide, and we can pass on to the fun part, actually talking about how these databases work. But I just wanted to leave with a message similar to our friends at BRISA that, you know, welcome to contribute. If you're from an agency or any HTA body that produces HTA reports, you can add those, and we encourage you to add those to the database so it's more complete. You don't have to be an INAHTA member. We have a CSV, a Microsoft Excel file that you can use to have a batch upload so that you can have a number of records added at the same time. You can also go one by one if you have only a small number of records. Contributors can edit records after publication. This is an innovation that INAHTA brought in with feedback from the users of the database when it was rebuilt in 2019. Was that when you add records as a contributor, once it's on the database, previously you would have to talk to the administrator to get any changes if there was a change in email or if there was some extra information you wanted to add to the record. It would all have to go through me or the content administrator to change. And so it forms like a bottleneck where there were delays and problems. So now when you add your agency records, you're able to edit them even after they're published. You can't delete them, but you can make changes if there's small things. So that was an added feature to make it easier to use and manage your records on the database. We have a content administrator named Leanne, who's wonderful, and she reviews the records that are added for errors. She checks the links and things and confirms or adds mesh terms. So there's consistency in how those are applied. And I'll just end there. And if anybody has any questions about the database in general, or you may be interested to become a contributor, please feel free to contact me. That's my direct email. The INAHTA email is there. So I'd be very happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much. And I'll hand back. I think it's Maylen who's continuing, but I'll stop sharing. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline. I'm working with Vanya and Malen in the IMT team and supporting the RedETSA Secretariat. I just wanted to thank Malen, Vanya, Juan Antonio, and Tara for their presentations. It's very interesting to learn about the two databases and the networks and to see the commonalities and differences between those two. So yes, now Malen and Steve will show us the practicalities of how to use the two databases. But before that, we just wanted to remind everyone that you can include your questions in the corresponding box below, so where you can see Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Yes, please feel free to put any questions here. And Malen, over to you now.
Muchas gracias, Caroline. Bueno, como comentaba Caroline, ahora vamos a ver algunos aspectos
Thank you,
más.
Karen. As Karen was telling us, we'll move on to certain practical issues.
Muchas gracias, Caroline. Ahora vamos a ver algunos aspectos más.
Thank you, Karen. As Karen was telling us, we'll move on to certain practical issues.
Muchas gracias, Caroline. Ahora vamos a ver algunos aspectos más
Just a second, please.
Oh. Y abrí la presentación errónea,
I seem
disculpen.
to have opened the wrong presentation. That was not my presentation.
Había abierto la anterior. Bueno,
Very well then.
vamos a ver algunos aspectos prácticos de
We'll
cómo
get into
utilizar
certain practical aspects on how to use the database and evaluation reports of the ETS, RedETSA, and BRISA.
y opciones de búsqueda.
Some general points and search options.
Se puede realizar una búsqueda
We
simple
can
con
have a
la
simple
palabra
search with
enfermedad
the
o
word or the disease or the technology that we're looking for, or an advanced search according to what we want to do, where we can have different types of searches and various search criteria as well as various filters. We will see this directly on the page later on. Also, we can use the DEX terms, which are the health descriptors, terminology developed by BIREME, and which broadens the mesh terms and translates them from English into Spanish, Portuguese, and more recently into French as well. In the search, we may use several titles such as LILACs, and or not. Also, it shows us certain similar titles in Lilacs and Midline, which are also of interest, and we can have access to such articles as well. On the score of access to the reports, we have access to the full reports as well as the files, and the reports which have been published in BRISA, to which we can have full access to the entire report. And BRISA is also adapted to be able to use it on mobile cell phones. This is how the database looks like today. We'll try to see this also on the web page. This is the RedETSA web page. We can go in from here into BRISA, or else we can go directly into the BRISA page. This tells us about its background, and here you have the video that we watched earlier in case you want to see it once again. And also directly from BRISA, we can have access to BRISA, and we can have access to it as well. So this is the portal of BRISA. It's very simple, very easy to navigate in it. As we said, BRISA was developed by the virtual health library of BIREME, BBS, and I thank for BIREME's support and Marcos Mori in particular. We can search and locate descriptors by topics. We can have also an advanced search, and we can select what is it that we want to filter, what are we looking for, the type of operator that we may require. Another possible option is what is commonly used in rapid searches. For example, we put here spinal muscular atrophy, for example. We have 17 records automatically, immediately. As you see, our database indeed is one for the region. We don't have so much development in history as Europe or INAHTA. We have almost 3,000 reports of sanitary technology, but we have full reports also. And this is what I wanted to show you. Here you see the number that we have at present, and we can conduct filters in keeping with the main topics or the institutions concerned, the languages, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and English, year of the publication, country of origin, and we can filter according to years of the publication. In the center, we find the results of the search. Here, we saw that 17 results appeared for spinal muscular atrophy. We have the 17 results shown up, and if you want to directly look at the summaries, you can see the summaries directly to explain that the database is in Portuguese, Spanish, and English. That is the platform. But then The titles, of course, are always in the original language, English or Spanish, in two languages, but the summaries appear in the original language. We have very good translators, and AI collaborates in order to be able to read this information in other languages in case we're not familiar with this language. And here we have the describing elements of the reports. We obtain this in detail. Information appears in a shorter mode. We can send this to our email or to a colleague or the page or whatever reference that we select, or the entire reference, in this case 17. We could select two of them and send those. We can also export in various formats in the page, be it RIS, site, EndNote, etc. We can also print. We can share the various formats. Down here, you store the details of the search. If we have a previous search, we can copy and paste and look for the information. So we could, for example, do a search by adding a medication, in this case, nusinersen, and then we have a search of 11 reports breached about what we're looking for. Here you can see that Brazil, for example, Conitec do have a monitoring of technological report that we also have in Visa and some other reports from Brazil, from Conitec, of the Conitec in Argentina. There was one more, the ETS in Colombia, the Collaborating Center at the University Zacates in Brazil. And if we wish to access this one from Conitec, for example, we go into the report and we find the same thing. All the information about the report, when it was published, its objectives, its summary, as well as the described elements. Down here we have similar points. This is an automatic filter that does an automatic search in Medline and Lilacs, which Brisa does, in order to show similar points which might be useful regarding the same topic. And if we want to have access to the full text, which is perhaps what is of most interest to us, we do a click here on the right for the full text, and it downloads the full text. There it is, and we can download it. We can also download another report. Let us look for one right here by Conatec in Argentina. We click there and we find all the information, the summary, the describers, and also some other similar points. We click for the full text, and this leads us to the report that we can download or just look at it directly. It seems to me that this would be all as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if you had any other. No, this is in case something didn't work well, but luckily everything worked quite well. If you have any questions regarding Brisa, we are here to answer. And thank you so very much for this space granted to us. Thank you.
So I think it's my turn. Hola, soy Siv Waffenschmidt, soy jefe del
Good morning.
departamento.
I am Siv.
Oh, I'm hearing my
Waffenschmidt.
translation. I'm going to have to. I hear my own. I hear my own translation. That's really disturbing. I don't know how I could change that now.
If you could enter the main floor.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, great. So, soy Siv Waffenschmidt, soy jefe del departamento de gestión de la
I
información.
am Siv Waffenschmidt. I'm head of the Information Management Department at ICWIG, which is a sister agency of HTA. I'm going to discuss how you can use the INAHTA HTA database.
You the main search options. Of course, it's freely available, but a registration is recommended because to save, view, and download the search history, you have to be registered. You have two search options: simple search, advanced search, but only a simplified search is possible, and I'm going to show you an example for that. There's no semantic search word for variations, for example, so all the variations, all the synonyms must be covered in your search string. And there's also mesh terms available, so you could search for free text terms and mesh terms as well. And of course, the usual Boolean operators and or not are available, and truncation as well. So this is an example. If you have, or if you do a systematic search, for example, in Medline, this is a search on the left side for Ovid Medline. When you search in the International HTA database, you have to simplify your search. Of course, you can search for the mesh terms, but for synonyms or adjacency operators and so on, you can't use that, and you should use simpler words. This is the search for mesh terms. You have two options. And here you can see the two options on the right and on the left side. And you could go to the Mesh Explorer and type in the mesh term, and then you can choose which mesh term you would like to add to your search. This is an example on how to use the free text search term. For example, we would use the operator or the field all, and then search for the free text terms. There is a search history and available, and that's really a helpful support if you want to do a systematic search. You can run the different lines, for example, mesh terms, then the free text terms, and then combine these different search lines, for example, within one search concept, within or if you want to combine two search concepts, then with and. In this example, we have a really simple search for devices, and in the search history, you could see we have 19 hits. When combined, the search line 1, 2, and 3. And then you can click on the 19 hits, and you can see them in the results section. This is how the individual entries are displayed. And you could save the selected. You could save the selected search history, for example, and you can save your search history so you can click on it or use it next time you're using the database. And also you are able to export the references. There are two options to export the references. And yes, and at the end of my short presentation, I wanted to add how we as information specialists, when we are doing systematic reviews, when are we using the HTA database? For example, we are at the beginning of each project, we are doing preliminary searches. We are looking for systematic reviews or HTA reports on our topic that are already done. And the HTA database is one of the main source we are looking for then. Of course, we are looking at individual HTA agencies as well, but the HTA database is the first place to look for. And of course, if we are doing systematic reviews or HTAs, we are searching the database. And in our experience, you should also, if you are doing health economic evaluations, you should search the HTA database as well. I'm sure there are many other options when and how to look at the HTA database, but that are our experiences, and hopeful, and I hope you find the database as helpful as we do. Muchas gracias por su atención. ¿Hay preguntas?
Thank you very much, Sue. I think if it's the end of your presentation, we can move on to the Q&A for the overall session. So thank you so much, Malin and Sue, for your presentation on how to use the database. And yeah, hopefully it will be useful for people who want to use it. So we have about 20 minutes left. I think we can answer some questions from the audience. So if I could ask all the panelists to turn their camera on again, and we can answer questions for the audience. Great, thanks. So one of the first question we had was about, so it was initially addressed for Brisa and RedETSA, but I'm going to ask INAHTA as well, because I think it's interesting. The first question is about whether we have any criteria for the publication of HTA reports. So first for Brisa, Malin, ¿quieres responder? Si tenemos algunos requisitos para la publicación.
Sí, por supuesto.
Yes, of course. For the time being, there aren't any technical or quality requirements for the health technology assessments. We don't conduct any evaluation of the ETS or health technology assessment quality. Most of the reports, HTA or products relating to HTA, technology, monitoring, economic evaluations, etc. These come from the members themselves, from the RedETSA network. But we're looking with Brisa to work with other collaborators to see, and if they want to support us, we can discuss that. They can email us. The only thing we require are the HTA documents, the author's information, and then we work with the librarians who update this. The one that's going to upload this to the Brisa website will organize the data. We'll put in the data and terms in the database, labeling, so that then they can conduct the proper searches. But the only thing we request is that the information be shared.
Thank you, Malin. And I don't know, Tara, Sue, or Juan, from the INAHTA side, I think you were saying that any HTA body can contribute, not just INAHTA members. But then is there any criteria to be published, whether it's for INAHTA members or no INAHTA members? Do you have any criteria to select the HTA reports?
I can maybe jump in, and then Steve and Juan Antonio, if you wish to add. So this was discussed at the database steering committee, and it's a question, but the database, the international database, doesn't have strict inclusion criteria because of the nature of HTA and the names and the types of reports that are produced. It would be an exhaustive list to try to make that complete. And so it's the way that we control the types of reports that are there is first the type of contributor, because you have to register, get in touch with the secretariat. We have to set you up as a contributor so we know who you are and we know pretty much who the HTA producers are, whether they're not members or non-members. You get to an understanding of who they are. There's not a critical assessment of the HTA report. So the content administrator doesn't look at the original report and make sure that it's actually an HTA or things like that. There's the trust that, if they're from an HTA body that produces, the reports that come out are legitimate. We do have our content administrator look at the face validity of the record. So if it's something that doesn't seem to her like an HTA, she'll flag it, and that'll be a question for the database steering committee to discuss. But that's how we've handled it, because we just have a very broad scope of agencies and type of reports that are produced. And I'll just mention as well that there's two kinds of reports on the database. There's completed HTA reports, but also ongoing projects, which is an interesting aspect. I think that is one of the differences as well a little bit with BRISA, is that we have an agency can add a record for a project that's planned or in process. So that allows some opportunity for agencies to see what's underway with other agencies as well. So there's those two kinds of records in the database. Great. I don't know, Steve or Juan Antonio, if you wanted to add comment.
Sí, solo añadir que efectivamente.
I just wanted to mention that yes, it is an open database, and we don't have specific requirements with regards to the reports. And we also don't evaluate the quality of the reports before including them in the database. Of course, the user is ultimately the final responsible party in terms of assessing the quality of the report and determine whether the content is of use. Let me just remind you that a few years ago, we included a technical note, a disclaimer, because we said that we do not acknowledge any responsibility on this. We're simply compiling the results presented by the evaluation agencies.
Thank you very much, Juan and Tara, for this answer. Another question that came in is about the fact that all the work we're doing within networks and databases is to inform and avoid the duplication of work. So one of the attendees was asking whether there would be room for joint work between the RedETSA and the INAHTA databases and networks.
Bueno,
sí. First.
Sí, claro. Quizás puedo hablar por todos, pero sería
I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but on behalf of INAHTA, this is a concept that when we conduct joint work with INAHTA, and when we talked about this webinar, this is something that, well, we didn't discuss formally, but we looked at whether the purpose of BRISA and the INAHTA databases to avoid duplicating efforts. We might think in the future about creating one single database for reports. That has a potential, but for the time being, it's also true that most of the contributors for both databases are not necessarily the same agencies. So it's not that we're duplicating information, but it could be a significant move forward if we did work together.
Thank you, Malen. INAHTA, is there anything you want to add or reflect on this?
Yes, I would love to talk to you about that. So okay. Yes, from my point of view, I'm as an information specialist, I would love that we would work together. And of course, that would be really great. I also see that that there are some things that we have to talk about first. And as you know, with two organizations talking about such a collaboration, it takes time. On the other side, I think it makes sense. So Germany or German is a really small country. in comparison to Spanish-speaking countries in the world. So I think it makes sense that there is a Spanish-speaking community and database. And if something like that would exist in Germany, of course I would search for reports in German at first before I have to look at any other languages. But yeah, I'm very open to a collaboration. But yeah, I'm not INAHTA secretariat, so Tara might have to say something. About that.
It's
too.
the board. It's the board, not the secretariat.
Yeah. I know.
Thank you. See, Juan, did you want to add up anything to what?
Sí, yo totalmente de acuerdo con lo que...
I totally agree with what Siv mentioned. This has potential for the future and is highly desirable. For the time being, however, it's more practical to keep open both databases. That, of course, in the future, we may have more technical actors that would be involved in sharing information with the BRISA and INAHTA databases. These are technical aspects that over time can be discussed to see if we really want to bring together, unify both. But of course, I know that there are language barriers as well that sometimes stands in the way of facilitating. And with now AI, however, with AI and new technologies, we can overcome those types of barriers.
Rebecca's comment in the chat, and yeah, I mean, from our perspective and from being at the Secretariat, I'm very aware of what we're asking our members to do and the many things that they have to do in their jobs and things. So it is, from a contributor's perspective, absolutely, I can see it would make a lot of sense to have one place where they bring their records and not having to have more than one database. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. But as everyone has said, there's the time and some technical challenges and things for us to look at. But of course, I think it makes a lot of sense to be as efficient as we can in HTA for our members and contributors. Absolutely.
Thank you. Then we have a question about medical devices. I believe the question is whether we have experience about HTA reports about medical devices and the methodologies. Ada, feel free to clarify the question if it's not what you're asking for. But yeah, from the BRISA and INAHTA databases, do we have any HTA reports on medical devices, or is it mainly pharmaceuticals? Malen, do you want to answer? I think we do.
Sí, exactamente. Sí, tenemos.
Yes, we do. We do have technology, health technology assessment, including mainly on medicines, of course, medicines and vaccines, because the database was developed at the time when that was the main focus. But now we do see some assessments of medical devices. So once we sort this out by category and we look at the different types of technology, I think you're going to find this information more easily identifiable through the categories process that we're going to follow.
Yeah, sure. Just sort of similar in the INAHTA side. Yeah, we have.
Yes, from the perspective of INAHTA, we have
health technologies that are assessed, and the reports are in the database. And interestingly, most agencies, and INAHTA anyway, assess medical devices. It's much more common, and that's because often the drug plans are big national programs, but then they have HTA agencies at the regional level within countries. That's quite common. So people always think of pharmaceuticals when they're thinking HTA, when in fact most agencies either do both, or the big national drug plan does the pharmaceutical review, and then the regional HTAs do everything else. Yeah, so that's all very typical. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then one other question we had was about the frequency, about how often the databases are updated. So is it monthly, quarterly, or anytime you have new reports available? Or is it on a case-by-case basis?
Bueno, en el caso de Brisa, es un poco en el momento que
In the
tenemos.
case of Brisa, and it all depends on the actual case. With some agencies, we have reached an agreement of monthly. We go into the agency or the institution and we download the reports directly and then have access through Brisa. With other institutions, they are the ones that whenever they have new reports, they share them with us and then we send them. So there's a little bit of everything. There's some institutions too that don't have their own webpage or who did not make their ETS reports public, and the way in which they are discussed and published through Brisa or RedETSA. So they share the reports with us and we upload them. It all depends. Sometimes twice a year or monthly, according to the amount of production that that given institution has.
And from the INAHTA side, because I think also, Tara, you were mentioning sometimes you publish some work in progress evaluation. So do you have also like a time frame from when it's being updated for this specifically?
Right. So the database is updated on a rolling basis. So as quickly as records are added, they're added to the database. Like I say, we have the content administrator that looks at the draft records that added. She checks it, makes sure the links work and adds the mesh terms, and then they're published. And that process is ongoing. So if there's a lot of contributions, then there's more records added. So there's no strict monthly, quarterly update. It's on a rolling basis. Yeah, I don't know if Stephen, Antonio, you wanted to comment?
Solo comentar que
just to say that, as you have stated, Tara, this has been updated. Both Brisa and the INAHTA databases are live and they're updated periodically. But in the case of INAHTA, on a periodical basis, we introduce improvements regarding technical aspects. This year, we had the possibility of conducting a survey among our members in order to identify improvements regarding functional issues. And our directing committee is improving these aspects to bring them in. So these are databases which are live, and in one way or the other, they continue to improve with the passage of time, introducing aspects that the users themselves are requesting from us. In the case of Brisa, I would take it that it is exactly the same thing, something similar.
Just in case, I know we have sophisticated information specialists listening to us and will be searching. And I wanted to just say that, as I described in my presentation, there was a couple of years in 2019 and 20 when INAHTA was rebuilding the database from the CRD, and there was a bit of time when we weren't updating the database as it was being constructed. And so larger agencies that produce a lot of reports have had to catch up with those couple of years that have been missing. And we have most of our agencies caught up, but that is a process that's happening. There will be some major agencies adding their records. So if you're looking and you're saying, oh, it's incomplete, but it's due to this 2-year rebuild, and there's this big update. And once that major update is done by the agency, then it's just rolling forward. So that process is just about complete.
Great, thank you very much. We have one last question, and I think then we'll have to get to the close. Is about the exhaustivity and completeness in Brisa. So does it contain all HTA reports from contributing agencies, or are we selecting some to be published?
Bien. De nuestra parte, de Brisa, todos los
On our behalf in Brisa, all the reports which are shared with us, 100% of those are uploaded to Brisa. As I said, we don't do an assessment of the quality, no quality assessment, but rather we rely on our members who are dedicated to doing that. However, the question would be rather whether we're going to have 100% of the ETS reports which are drawn up by member institutions. We don't have 100%. Perhaps some institutions, as we were saying, have been working with confidentiality issues. Also, some agencies or government institutions still find it difficult to publish all of the ETS reports, sometimes because they have names of patients or everything began because of a certain specific patient. So we have to work so that those reports may become ETS reports that may be published and disseminated. And we're working in that together with some of the institutions where we have been able to forge ahead. All of these are government agencies as well as ministries, and there is no barrier as far as the number or the quantity, but there are some members where the production of ETS goes out to other institutions. They cannot share 100% of the reports either, but they share a large amount of those and in accordance with the needs, and they allow us to select those reports which might be of greater interest for the network.
Great, thank you so much, Malen. I think, yes, because we only have 3 minutes left, and in the interest of time, I think we're gonna wrap up here. Just wanted to thank all the panelists for their great presentations, and I'll hand over to Juan for closing this webinar. Thank you.
Bueno, para finalizar, solo agradecer
To
la
conclude, just to thank the participation of the attendees, as well as the joint organization of this webinar. Both our colleagues from INAHTA, as well as those of BRISA, made this joint webinar possible, that this might serve as a basis to have future collaboration for other activities and joint initiatives. I think it's important that this type of tool will be accessible, will be open, and may be used by all agencies that deal in the evaluation of health technology from any computer or anywhere around the globe. So that is all for now. I would like to thank you for your participation and collaboration of all of you toward this initiative. I thank you. Thank you so very much. We had up to 130 people to learn about RedETSA and INAHTA in this last webinar of this year. We thank INAHTA, members of the team, and a very good end of the year. Happy holidays. We see you in 2024. Continuing on with our seminar starting in March next year. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Goodbye. Ciao, ciao.